everybody. Welcome to Quasar QUA-NOLOGY, the podcast that reviews every chronological appearance of your favorite cosmic superhero, Quasar. I'm your co-host, Mike Allen. As always, I'm joined by
Joshua Mervell. Today, we're going to be taking a look at a couple of issues from Quasar and also a one-off little guest appearance in a Captain America comic. So
yes, that's right.
Yeah.
And the good thing about the Captain America comic is it's also written by Mark Gruenwald. So
right.
We love Mark Gruenwald, right?
Yeah.
So anyway, we once again didn't plan out anything before we started recording.
No.
But I would like to summarize absolutely number 18.
Okay. So I can jump in right away and just do this one real quick. It's
17.
Pretty straightforward. I'll quickly kind of jump through it, but we got a cool cover here of Quasar as he's flying through what looks like space, and there's this space bridge, and this universe's fastest beings are racing across this this bridge. It's pretty cool. We've got Photon. We've got who else? With the Wizard. We got that's what's his name?
We got the Wizard, Captain Marvel, Makari, Speed Demon, Super Saber,
Speed Demon,
Black Racer,
yeah, and Quicksilver, of course, yeah. So yeah, we got a bunch of them. We see Quasar's on this ship, and he's talking to a bunch of these heroes from another universe that he's saved in the last issue, and he's here with Makari. And
well, we should say this is the X Squadron Supreme,
right? Oh yeah, I guess it is kind of important too, because the Wizard is from the X Squadron Supreme, right? So he kind of plays into the story later on. But Makari is here, and he was helping him out in the last mission, so he's kind of still here as they're making their way back to Earth, and they spot this like really fast thing fly into the atmosphere, into Earth's atmosphere as they also enter. So Quasar and Makari, they team up once again to chase after this thing, and they find out that it is this being, this like supernatural being from another universe. He's essentially, or not even another universe, but like a god of universes who is
he's an elder of the universe,
right? An elder of he's the elder of speed, and he invites Makari to take part in this race that is supposed to be like all of Earth's strongest beings racing together to see who's the fastest. And he kind of flies off. Quasar grabs Makari and brings him back to Earth. He allows him to kind of stay over at his house. He walks in and he introduces him to his dad, who he has not seen in a long time. And his dad is acting strange, and he has been for a while. And what Quasar doesn't know, but we do, is that his dad has actually been dead for quite some time, and this is presumably Eon, as we see his like tendrils kind of coming through this portal and controlling his dad.
That's so awesome.
Yeah, so strange, so weird. And we cut back to his personal life, and when he gets back, his coworkers are kind of talking about how the new person that they hired, she's been acting strange, and she went into Wendell's office, and he kind of is a little nervous that maybe she stumbled upon something, and he goes in and talks to Eon. Eon is also acting a little bit strange. Honestly, I don't know quite what happened even on this page, the last two panels. It's very confusing.
So it's a little bit confusing, and first you have to understand Eon's anatomy.
Mm-hmm.
Eon has a human face with a superhero mask, but he also has an eye, and I didn't really know until now. I think he only sees through the eye. Okay. I don't think he sees through the human face. So when he's looking like if you look over here, when he's looking at Gwendol Vaughn, the eye's looking at him, the eye's looking at him. Then the eye follows him out of the room. Then the eye notices a floating high heel shoe. Then his tendril throws the shoe into his mouth to eat it.
I didn't see the shoe.
It's just a silhouette. It's not really colored properly. It should have been like red or something. Yeah.
Got ya. Okay. Because I didn't see the shoe, so it almost to me looked like he grabbed Wendell off screen and threw him into his mouth. And I was like, wait, what is happening? And then obviously the next page, like throughout the book, we don't find out that anything happens because nothing did happen. So maybe Eon ate this woman, I guess. Anyways, we cut back to Makari as he's training, and again, this like speed god like starts chasing him down, and it's kind of like taunting him that he's not fast enough, and you know they kind of have a little competition, like mini competition. Makari tries to speed past, and then the speed god catches up and he blasts off, and Makari's kind of a little bent out of shape about it. He's like taking some time to chill on an island in the meantime. We cut over to the meeting spot of where this race is going to happen, and this is where we see all of the other superheroes that were invited to take part in this. And this speed god, he describes how nobody on Earth is going to be harmed by this super race, and what's going to happen is he creates this space bridge that bridges Earth and the moon, and the race is to see who can get to the moon the fastest. We see all of our heroes kind of lining up. They race. Makari is thinking about this strategically, and he's not just going fast right off the bat. He's like pacing himself, and by the 10,000 kilometer mark, he is in first place.
Right.
We see him. Then we see this speed god kind of like going through, and he's like kicking certain people out because they're not moving. Like Photon is like moving so fast that her legs aren't really like touching the ground enough.
Right,
so she was disqualified and she was sent back to Earth. And while this is happening, Quasar gets kind of like a little beacon from his quantum bands. So he flies down back to the base of the Earth and is flying through the tunnel. And he sees this man who has kind of like crash landed here, and he starts running the race.
Right.
And he very quickly zips by everybody, including Makari, who is in first place. And he ends up winning the race, right. As we see here. And this ends up being another person from another universe, correct? I'm trying to remember who this was. This was...
Well, he says his name on which page?
Let me
here?
see.
The last page at the top. Do you see what he says there?
Let me see. You know, I'm viewing these comics from like such a
he says
so far, but
name, sir? And he says, I'm not sure, buried alien, something like that. Oh, okay. So he's like, okay, and basically he was trying to recruit someone from these people. He was going to recruit the fastest person. So he grabs buried alien and they disappear. And then just at that moment, Makari comes up, and there's a great scene at the end. And Makari says, I'm just going to read this. I lost, didn't I? I'm not the fastest man on Earth. And then Quasar says, sure you are, Mac. Whoever it was that passed you is not from Earth and nowhere near Earth anymore. Be glad you ran a close second. If you'd been first, the runner would have spirited you off in parts unknown, to parts unknown, and I'd probably never see you again. I ask you, what in the world would I do without a pal like you? And Makari says, you're You're a good friend, Quasar. And that's the end. Oh,
Yeah. It's a strange issue. It feels it's interesting to kind of see all these different heroes together and racing. Like, I feel like that is kind of something that you talk about often when it comes to comics. Like, it's a very like schoolyard conversation of like, who's the fastest character in Marvel, who would win in a race, kind of thing. And yeah, it was cool to see all these characters together, but beyond that, it's not like a fantastic story. I'm really not sure how any of this fits in with anything else, but it was interesting and fun to read.
That's the thing. I'm actually grateful it doesn't, because we just had a 4-issue storyline that tried to be this big cosmic epic, and it was kind of a
flop.
Trudge to get through.
Right. Bless you.
Thanks. So this was a relief to me. Now, I have to point out that I did read this issue as a kid, and I loved it. And there's a couple of reasons this issue is significant. First of all, it's the last issue drawn by Mike Manley. So it's kind of at the end of another classic era, right? It's also the last issue of Quasar I bought as a kid before I stopped collecting it.
Oh, wow.
It was one of my favorite comics. Now, this is the funny thing. The reason I stopped collecting it is because I didn't think it was quite as good as it was when it was drawn by Paul Ryan. But the other reason is because number 18, which we'll talk about in a few minutes, the price jumped to $2 Canadian for no reason. The page count was the same. The page format, like the printing format, was the same. It jumped 75 cents, which is a lot when you're a kid. And I was so angry. I was like, screw this. I'm not buying this. I had no idea how good number 18 was going to be, and also how good an artist Greg Capullo was going to be. And so it was just a weird coincidence that it happened the way it did. But the other thing I want to say about this issue, because I actually did really like it, one of the reasons I like it is because it features all of these guest stars, but it's not a crossover. You don't have to know anything about any of them. You don't have to read any of the story to understand what's going on. This story is kind of like, it's not like you have to read this story to understand anything else that's going on, like in another Marvel story. So for that reason, I like it. It's kind of like you're just pulling these characters out of their books, throwing them together, having a story, and then ending it. The other reason I like it is because even though it's about measuring who's the fastest man on Earth, Makari doesn't win. Like, he does win. He is the fastest man on Earth, but as Quasar points out, he is beat by someone else, but that someone else is from another dimension. And
on top of that, it's a good thing he was the second fastest, because now he is the fastest, because the fastest person that was on Earth is now gone, right? So
now gone, right?
It's kind of a fun way for him to become the fastest.
Right. Now, the other thing, I'm surprised you didn't pick up on this, but do you realize who this fastest man alive was?
No.
Well, look at his costume. Look at his underwear, and imagine.
Oh, is it Flash?
It's the Flash.
Oh.
He calls himself Buried Alien, and Flash.
Barry Allen.
So that's
interesting.
Barry Allen, who died in the Crisis only a few years earlier, but magically shows up here in a Marvel comic. Isn't that great?
That is kind of cool. And the fact that he shows up and is the fastest, even out of all the Marvel characters, is kind of cool too.
Yep. And isn't that great? And I also have to point out that it has been said that Mark Gruenwald really loved DC, and that's why he devoted so much time to the Squadron Supreme and to things like this and just other things, like he was constantly kind of just have it like making little allusions to it. Now, what's interesting here? I just looked this up. I looked up the issue on MarvelFandom.com. But wait a second here. Okay, Buried Alien was an amnesiac speedster from another universe. It says here, oh my gosh, he does come back. He does come back.
Oh, wow.
In Quasar number 58, but in that issue, he changes his name to Fast Forward, possibly because of legal reasons. We don't know. But I don't know. It's just interesting, you know?
That is kind of cool. Yeah. It's a nice little allusion, nice little nod. The character. Right. But it was a fun issue, but like story wise, it's kind of whatever, you know, like there's no real reason that this like speed god is here doing this. It's kind of just like whatever. And just because it's a one-off, I don't think that it needs to be this like overarching greater story, but even just this story alone felt a little bit weak for me.
Well, it was probably
as a story.
It could have been like, well, we've got to fill one issue until Greg Capullo can start. Maybe like just think of a filler story. Maybe that was it. But I really don't mind it. I do like it. I do like how they touched on all the subplots. They updated us on what was going on. The little father scene was great. I thought I love that. But now that go ahead.
Speaking of the father scene. Seeing that, I maybe I've said this before, and maybe this is not a new revelation for me, but seeing that scene, I wish that we didn't know this already. I wish that we didn't know that his father died. Like, I wish that we were also seeing it through Quasar's perspective and not knowing the weird thing happening to his dad.
Sure, that's one way to do it. Yeah,
I think that it would really grab me. I think like they wouldn't have to change anything else except for the first time they mentioned like this is the last time he'll ever see his dad because his dad dies or whatever it was, right?
Right.
And then like everything else stays the same. He's acting weird. He's distant. He doesn't really know why. He thinks that it's because they got into an argument. And then we start to see these like small little hints like Eon makes him like disappear. And then in this scene, we see like the tentacles coming, like controlling him. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like keep everything else the same, but don't reveal to us that the real reason he's acting weird is because it's not actually him. I think it could have been like a really fun reveal and like really been one of those like science fiction horror type like mysteries or
or something. Yeah, sure. Yeah, that's not a bad idea.
But
and then when it's revealed, it would have been like a big twist.
Right.
Like, oh my gosh, the past 8 issues, whatever.
Yeah.
Now, because this is Mike Manley's last issue, well, let's talk about the art because I did notice, I think this is one of the first times he inks himself. Now, the inks are a little bit angular, a little bit messy, but I do appreciate the fact that he's inking his own pencils because I think he brings out some of the, on page, I'm just trying to see what you have up there. If you go to page 6, or is it one before that? Right there. You see the one after that.
Oh, okay.
You see Makari's face at the bottom?
Yeah, it's not great, huh?
I appreciate, like, it's cartoony and it's old-fashioned cartoony, but I like it though. I appreciate it, you know, like it's like of an older style. I do like it.
Yeah.
So on the same page, look at the like the gesture of the body language of the runner. Like that is someone who's really running. Like there are artists who draw the Flash who had no idea how to draw someone running, but this guy knows how to do it, you know?
Yeah. It really does feel like it's like full strides for sure. Yeah.
Now cut to the next page.
Yeah.
Look at this. We have yellow at the top.
I love this.
We have blue in the middle.
Yeah.
The lights come on and it's yellow. It's like, this is classic comic book art, you know? This is what I love. Just simple storytelling.
I love their landing as well. Like the bright light from the energy is so bright you can only see their silhouettes and it's like casting shadows on the house and everything. I really love that. And then to see them walk in and it's dark, kind of mysterious, and then the first thing in full light is his father sitting there in darkness. He's like sitting at the table looking straight forward, like not really moving. no energy at all. And then he just kind of like, oh, I couldn't rest. Sorry, I'm still awake.
Yeah.
It's so like eerie and creepy. It really works for sure. Yeah. Yeah.
And this is, I probably wouldn't have appreciated this when I was a kid in the age of like Todd McFarlane and Jim Lee and all those guys, but this is good stuff.
Yeah, it's fun.
I'm just looking through now. Yeah, I don't know. Like, the art is good throughout, but even like the scene of Makari of the Flash catching up on Makari is pretty well done. And the last page seems a little bit cramped.
Yeah, very rushed for sure.
But I do like that last panel. And coincidentally, just as I finished reading this issue, I logged on to Threads, and somebody posted, "Hey, who's your favorite character?" and post one panel explaining why. Boom! And I posted this because this is right here, Quasar. You're a good friend, Quasar. What a great last panel. Anyway, so do you want? I definitely want to do the last issue. Do you want me to do Captain America as well? I can. I don't care.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. I feel like it's a pretty quick one, honestly.
Okay.
Yeah.
All
I feel
right,
like we can jump into.
Okay. Now we're going to jump to Captain America number
379.
379, right. So we have a cover here by Ron Lim, who I think was the regular artist at the time. And it's an okay cover. It's Quasar and Captain America reacting to Nefarious smashing to the ground. I don't know. What do you think of this cover?
It's okay. I will say Nefarious looks unbelievably terrifying on the cover. Like, there is something so unsettling about his face here that, like, just kind of gives me the creeps.
I don't know. Yeah, maybe it's because it could be because his eyes are black and his pupils are white.
I think maybe that's what it is, and then like the wrinkles on the face, like it just looks so unnatural. Right. But other than that, it's fine. He's punching the logo and it's all like disheveled or whatever. But yeah, it's a fine cover.
Okay, so now I should point out again that I was a big fan of Captain America during the storyline where he became the U.S. agent. Did you ever read that?
You know what? I did read some of that because of the U.S. agent being a part of the Captain America, the Falcon and Winter Soldier TV show.
Okay, I highly recommend to all of our viewers and to Josh, start reading Captain America. I believe it's at number 332 where he quits being Captain America and goes straight to 50. It is awesome. The whole run where he quits being Captain America, becomes U.S. agent, it's great, that whole era, okay? Unfortunately, we have a case here where Mark Gruenwald had a great idea for a storyline that lasted 2 years. Then once that idea was over, his ideas after that were not quite as good. He's still a good writer, but he'd already used up his best idea. So then he continued to write Captain America for another 12 years, unfortunately. So yeah, it was never as good as that initial few years, but it was still good. But this is also where we got that infamous Wolf Cap storyline where Captain...
Right, it was a werewolf, yeah.
Yeah, but we won't talk about that. Right now I'm going to talk about issue 3.
Nobody should ever talk about that.
Exactly. So this is also a weird period in Marvel history where the circulation was going up. There was artists left and right. And like this artist, Chris, what's his name? Chris Marrinan. This is some wonky splash page art.
Ooh, it's rough. It's really, really rough. The proportions are so off. Like, particularly their arms and hands look gigantic.
Right.
Like they're apes. Like they almost feel like they should be dragging on the ground. Like they're just so weirdly huge. And then their faces also have like a very uncanny feel. Their eyes are looking in different directions. Like Quasar's eyes are literally looking in different directions.
Yep.
It's rough. It's not great.
He knows how to draw muscles, just not in the right place.
Right. Yeah. That's a good way to put it. Yeah.
So anyway, So Wendell Vaughn is jogging along with Steve Rogers, so that's Quasar and Captain America. They've got another guy with them. They get the call from like the Avengers. Now, I was not really reading Avengers at this time, so I didn't know about this priority card contact thing. But anyway, I got to point out it's a typical scene, but I like the fact that there's a little bit of attention to detail where Quasar creates one of his energy things, whisks them off into the air, and then Captain America says, my sneakers are sticking to the floor. I wasn't aware that you could alter the surface properties of your energy constructs like that, Wendell. Quasar says, well, I've been working on it. Wouldn't do to lose passengers with sudden inertia changes. It's just something no other writer would really think of. It's just really smart. I like that stuff. So anyway, you also find out that he has their clothes ready, so they change into their superhero outfits. And then the issue goes downhill. So then we run into a supervillain who's dressed up as Count Nefaria, but he's not Count Nefaria. He's Nefarious. He calls himself Nefarious.
Yes.
He's kidnapped this woman.
Moonstone.
And basically, yeah, we find out later, but it's basically just a lot of fighting, a lot of I-beams, a lot of punching. There's a little bit of interesting interplay between Quasar and Cap, because Cap is the established like old school fighter, and Quasar is still younger. He's still learning, and he kind of idolizes Captain America. And then the bad guy gets away, and they're cleaning up some debris, and then they kind of regroup, and then they're flying along and trying to figure out what's going on. Then we follow Nefarious, and we find out his flashback origin, which I didn't even read because I refuse to read these flashbacks. I just don't read them. So I don't know what his origin is.
Oh, really? Okay, well, it turns out that he was the original Moonstone.
Okay.
And this woman tricked him into giving up his powers, and that's why she has the Moonstone powers.
Okay.
So he was the old Moonstone, and she is the new one. And while in prison, he met Dr. Nefara and took on his powers, and is now using this Nefarious title to get revenge on this new Moonstone.
Yeah, okay.
So, yeah. And then while they're in this cathedral, she starts seducing him and is like, hey, instead of fighting each other, why don't we start, making out and get a little spicy? Just take these these wrist restraints and boot restraints off of me, and we'll go to town. And that's when Cap and Quasar kind of show up. They put a bubble around this building that they're in, so that way they can't escape and nobody's harmed. They go in and kind of just tackle him to the ground and save Moonstone. And then Moonstone reveals that she's also evil and was, trying to trick him. So then Captain America kind of takes her out, and while Nefarious takes out Quasar, and they meet up, and Cap and Nefarious trade their hostages. And once Moonstone goes over to Nefarious, she double crosses him once again and kind of blasts him, but it backfires, and she ends up getting pinned underneath his limp body.
Right.
And they are both foiled at the end, and Quasar puts them in a bubble and takes them off to prison, presumably. Yeah. Yeah.
I gotta point out, this is the weirdest ending. Captain America says to Moonstone, let me ask you something, Moonstone. Why did you bushwhack Block? When I caught you kissing him, it looked like you were enjoying it. And she says, get real, Captain. I was just trying to keep him from killing me. The guy's a brain-addled creep. The last panel is Quasar flying away with Moonstone and then the body of Nefarious. And then Cap says, nice to meet someone with high standards. What a weird...
I don't even really understand what the message is in this story. What are they trying to tell?
I don't think there is
I don't get why these supervillains, why they're tied together, what this has to do with Cap and Quasar. It's really so confusing. Even like how does this connect even to Quasar and his abilities to like it I mean, I guess Quasar's guesting in a Captain America comic, so
yeah,
he doesn't, he's just there because he's an Avenger, but it's not good at all. It really kind of sucks. And this whole double crossing thing doesn't make any sense. There aren't even really any fun moments in it. You know what? Actually, right here, when he catches Captain America's shield in his mouth and then spits it out, is maybe the only fun moment in the issue.
Yeah.
like I don't know, nothing else clever happens.
No, that is pretty cool, actually. It's just funny how inconsistent, because like Mark Gruenwald is capable of writing some pretty good stories, but then he just kind of spits this out, and it's almost like you wonder, like, does he know it's bad, or is he just filling pages? I don't know.
Yeah, it's not great. And throughout, the art is so off. But there's some pages that are good. Like, okay, not this page.
Okay, that's one of the worst. That's one of the worst.
Close up of Captain America is
what in the
God.
The thing is
awful.
He knows how to do shadow. It's just that the actual anatomy underneath it is terrible.
Yeah.
Terrible. And then, like, look at Quasar's arm. It looks like it was swiped from, like, one drawing and it just added onto this one, right?
And it doesn't even look like Quasar and Cap are drawn in the same style in the one panel. Good point. That looks like a classic old school, like, 60s Captain America almost. And then it's like modern day Quasar. Like, they don't even, their faces don't even match. It's so...
You're right.
Strange. It's not even consistent in the same panel.
Go to the next page, and I gotta say, I do like that panel of Nefarious' face. Do you?
Really?
Yeah, I do. I think it's actually pretty good. I like it.
I think that if he was drawn to look like an old man for the rest of the issue, this would be fine.
Yeah.
But he kind of looks like a young, like, athletic supervillain, and this looks like this, like, old, like, man that's been punched so many times he's like swollen and bumpy. Like, it's just so inconsistent from like how we see him the rest of the comic. Like,
I don't know, there's even like a rule they say that,
like, what,
I think it was John Buscema who said that every line you add to a person's face adds like or 5 years to their life. Like,
look at this here. Like, he has like a bestial, like almost saber-tooth look to him in his face and how he's drawn. And then here it's like,
but it's funny though, because I think it's all about consistency, because that actual saber-tooth shot does look good.
Yeah.
It just doesn't match anything else. Right?
Yeah. No. Yeah. You don't really see like a close-up like this again from him.
Right.
Like, maybe in some far shots he kind of looks similar, but for the most part he just, I don't know. I really don't know what, like, look at this.
The bottom panel?
The bottom panel, and even the top one when he's got his laser eyes, that's like terrifying.
Yeah.
It's so weirdly inconsistent. I'm not sure what they were going for.
Like, okay, the one of his laser eyes, look at Captain America above, like that shot at the top of Cap. That's bad.
Yeah.
And that's what I think the key is it's like when you see an amateur comic book artist and you're like, oh yeah, I can see you have promise, but in a couple years he'll be ready. No, they just hired him.
Yeah.
Like, no offense to this guy. Maybe he's now doing really good work, and there are some good panels in here, but it just seems like he's not quite ready to be a professional.
Yeah, it's a little rough. Surprisingly, the flashback looks fine. Like, I feel like the silhouetted monochrome style works maybe for this art. Yeah, there are certain moments where it's fine. Like, even this, like, Dr. Nefarious in the top panel looks good. Well,
the girl at the bottom, Moonstone, she looks fine there.
Yeah, but again, it's so inconsistent.
Yeah.
Like, it's a very stylized one panel at the top, and then we cut back to like hyper realistic or these like cartoon. I don't know. It's not very good. And the story as well is just kind of this jumbled mess of a story. There's not much of a through line. It's kind of just like, okay, then this happens and this happens and this happens and this happens. There's no moment to breathe. There's no moment to think about what the characters are doing. I don't even think that there's a moment where the characters are thinking about anything. Everything kind of just quickly happens. And then at the end, both the bad guys are defeated and Quasar's flying away with them. Like, it's so... Ugh.
Yeah.
Ugh. Really hits you.
Filled,
yeah, it really hits you over the head.
Yeah.
No, it's not good. I don't know what else to say. This villain is uninspired. I don't understand what they were even thinking or going with this.
Mm-hmm.
Having a like semi-established supervillain who had his powers taken away to then fight the person who took his powers by using somebody else's powers he took from prison and taking on their moniker. It just is so...
To me, it screams Mark Gruenwald trying to fill in all the cracks of continuity, like going, oh, this character from 15 years ago, I'm going to explain actually what was really... like. No one cares, right?
Right.
Which is fine, though, because sometimes good things come out of that. Sometimes. Actually, one quick note about Mark Gruenwald.
Yeah.
He was... I think he was the one. He was the one that had the idea, although it might have been Steve Englehart, of explaining if Captain America was frozen on ice or in ice at the end of World War II because of Baron Zemo, who was the Captain America that we published in the 50s? Because there was a Captain America, if not one, two Captain America revivals in the 50s. Did you know about that?
Oh, no.
Yeah. So Captain America was canceled in the 40s, but then Marvel or Atlas brought him back once or twice for like 5 issues, but they failed, and they failed again. Submariner also came back. So then it was kind of one of those continuity guffaws with like, well, wait a minute, if he was on ice for 20 years, who's this other Cap? So they said, oh, it was actually the Patriot from these 1940s comics that no one remembers. He became Captain America. And then this other revival, it was actually the Spirit of 76. You know, it was just like a little cool thing. But anyway.
You know what, though? At least with that, it feels like it's a story, right? Like, let's write a story about the Patriot becoming Captain America, and we can kind of follow along as to why this happened. This is just like a Band-Aid.
Yeah, agreed.
That is, you know, it's kind of lost its stickiness. It's no longer adhesive, and it's kind of half hanging on. It's not good. It sucks. Yeah, it's not a good issue.
No, it's not.
But
now we're gonna read Quasar number 18, which, as I pointed out, if you look at the cover price, it has jumped 75 cents in Canada, 50 cents in the US. This is now historical. Maybe not historical, but it's the first prominent work by Greg Capullo, who went on to become the artist of Spawn for many, many, many a year. And then kind of, you know, I thought, okay, well, he's had his day. Then DC hired him in 2011 to reboot Batman with Scott Snyder, and he became a superstar, and well-deserved, because from the moment that I saw him in Quasar, I knew he was a great artist. And then we learned on one of our podcasts, he actually did an issue of Daredevil that was actually incredible. So he's always been a good artist. But so anyway, so this came out, like I said, late 1990. It was the first issue of Quasar I didn't buy because of the price jump. First issue by Greg Capullo. So I didn't read it until years later. I then reread it about a year ago, and it actually blew me away. Then I reread it again yesterday. It wasn't quite as good as I remembered.
Right.
Which I'm going to talk about, but let's just summarize this issue. So first of all, we have a very cool cover.
Yes,
Quasar,
I love this cover.
Yeah.
It's so cool.
By these ghostly images. And he's like, no, keep back. You don't exist. Neither do you, Quasar. Neither do you. Very Silver Age. I like it, you know?
And normally I don't love a lot of like dialogue or like text on a cover, but I don't know why. I really love this kind of like line. It actually drags you in. I feel like a lot of them, that's what it's supposed to do, is like make you interested, but I don't know why this grabbed me, and I really enjoyed this this like little line delivery here. So jump right in here.
So here's the thing. So this issue, once again, like once in a while, Mark Gruenwald, he hits a home run. It starts out in the middle of the story on medias res. I don't know how to pronounce it. Wendell Vaughn is walking along, and he's like, what the heck am I doing here? So Quasar appears in his hometown, and he's visiting his mother. And now I don't think I knew up until now. I think his parents are separated. That's the idea here. He's visiting his sister and his mother. He doesn't remember how he got there. He's narrating this in his head. He doesn't remember how he got there. He doesn't remember why he came there. But his mother and his sister are happy to see him. He calls back to his office, talks to Kayla. Maybe he's hoping he can figure out something, but he still can't figure out anything. So then he goes to sleep. And he has a dream about himself being Quasar, flying along with the quantum bands. He gets woken up by his sister, and then he finds out from his mother. He's like, our neighbor, there's a 10-year-old kid named Billy who's really interested in meeting you. He's like, oh, cool. Okay, well, I'll go meet him, hang out with him. So then we cut to Quasar going in, meeting this kid, and the kid is really enthusiastic, and he's like, oh, I want to be a comic artist when I grow up. And then he starts talking about it a little bit, and he's like, you know what? I've actually got some drawings right now I could show you. And Wendell Vaughn's like, Quasar's like, yeah, sure, okay, you can show me now. So then they go outside, and he brings them to
like a little clubhouse in his garage.
Yeah. So it's in the garage, and then it's kind of like in the attic, but it's like a little clubhouse in the attic. So then they climb up into this little clubhouse, and which might be another DC illusion, because the Legion of Superheroes also lived in a superhero clubhouse, which is what the kid calls this. So this is where the issue gets a little bit weird and maybe overcomplicated, but still cool. He brings them up and he shows them all of these drawings. And he says, oh, these are all pictures of the superheroes I created. And Quasar says, really? Now, then we should point out, this is Wendell Vaughn. He doesn't remember being Quasar at this point. So he's like, oh, this is a drawing of Quasar, like in Quasi-Stellar Radio Source. And then he's like, well, wait, did you say you created all these characters? Some of them look kind of familiar. Like this one, for instance, looks like Mr. Fantastic of the Fantastic Four. And he's like, yeah, I know, I created him. You mean you created that drawing of him? No, I created him. And it gets into this weird thing where this guy, it becomes like a Twilight Zone episode.
Yeah.
That's why I love it.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I want to tell you something. I'm not really a 10-year-old kid. I secretly, I'm really an old cosmic entity whose name you couldn't pronounce. I spent the last 5,000 years here on Earth fighting a war. You see, there's this other cosmic entity who's my eternal nemesis, and we've been fighting since the universe began. And he's like, do you read anything besides other comic books, And so then he's like, so then he explains that he creates all these superheroes, and there's another entity called, what's the other one called?
It's like the
Where is it?
Let me see. I think it's around here.
Unbeing,
right?
Destroys them all, and then he has to keep recreating them and bringing them back, right?
Mm-hmm.
So he's like, well, he basically says, I engineered all of them. Like the FF, for instance, I didn't build Mr. Fantastic's spaceship for him or anything, but once he was in orbit, I was the one who whipped up the cosmic radiation storm and made sure it gave his whole crew superpowers.
Mm-hmm.
So he talks about how he created all the mutants and blah, blah, blah. So then he's like, I actually need you to help me, because I need you to help me defeat this evil entity. And he's like, okay, well, let me think about it. And then he's like, he
asks about why he doesn't remember being Quasar. Right. Yeah.
So then the kid explains how just this morning you were in your office and you got a letter, and it shows it's from
Augmento.
I must see you at once. I've discovered a menace to my town. And so Quasar flew there, and then once he got there, what happened? I don't remember. Yeah.
The Unbeing took away his memories and made him not Quasar anymore.
Yes, and so the kid's like, see, she can alter reality retroactively. She can undo anything I create. And the Quasar's like, the story you told me seems familiar, like it was a dream I had long ago. And he's like, that's great. Most of the people she uncreates can't remember the slightest thing. So anyway, so then Quasar says, well, who is this Unbeing? And he's like, my grandma.
Mm-hmm.
Or that's who she appears to be. Like, what a weird idea this whole thing is. So then the kid's like, well, she hates all superheroes. If I didn't keep her busy by constantly creating more and more, or she says she hates all beings or powers. She would uncreate anything with power if I didn't keep her busy by constantly creating more and more superheroes. So then the kid says, I want you to help me. I want you to kill this old lady.
Right.
She is actually this god, this evil god. So will you do it? And he's like, once she's reborn, she's going to be at the peak of her powers. She's going to wipe out all the superheroes. And so he's like, Billy, before I can agree to anything, I'm going to need more proof that who you are is what the proof you are who you say you are. So then there's this weird flash where he shows him, but we don't really see much. We don't really see what he is. Mm-hmm. But then the kid says, well, did you see it? I saw it. You'll do it? I guess. Excellent. We'll meet at the nursing home. So then Quasar goes off, and he's still thinking on his own. Then he goes home, and he's talking to his sister. And then he says, can I ask you a question? If you had the feeling something was terribly wrong and you had the power to fix it, would you, if it meant you had to do something terrible? Mm. And the sister says, is this the sister? Or the
I think it's the mom. Yeah.
Okay, the mother. Like, if the only way to stop Hitler was to prevent him from being born, would that be right? And the mother says, I'm sorry, son, those kinds of questions. And he's like, I know, sorry, get some sleep. But it is a great scene. I love it. The fact that he's actually asking his mother. So then Quasar meets up with the kid after school. They drive together to Dali's nursing home. They go in and they're talking to the grandmother. And then the kid is like, you can see the kid. He's standing there, and the Quasar thinks in his head, how could I do this? She looks so frail, so authentic. Then the kid holds up his hands. Hey, Wendell, remember that trick I told you about? 1, 2, 3. He turns him into Quasar. Now he's got his costume on. And then the mother's like, Billy. And then the kid puts his hand over the old lady's face. Now, Quasar, shoot her now. Blow her head off before it's too late. But in the kid's eye, we see him looking at the kid, and we don't know if he sees something. It's kind of hard to see the panel. Mm-hmm. But then he shoots his quantum bands, and then he's like, oh, please, let this be the right thing. The next panel, it's revealed like an episode of Star Trek. We see the true form of this little kid. Mm-hmm. He's like this, what's that famous, like Lovecraftian?
Right, like worm. Yeah.
Coming out of the kid's neck, this giant worm thing with all these like tentacles and like veins, and it's awesome. And then we see all these ghostly superhero characters floating around the room, all the ones that he's created, right? And then the voice of the creature is like, you insipid traitor, you were supposed to shoot her, not me, how could you have known? And so then the kid disappears, and then Quasar starts talking to the woman, and she says, thank you. By breaking open his host body, you've caused him to dissipate until such a time as he can recreate himself. And so basically, then Quasar says, well, what he told me, how much of it was true? Mm-hmm. And the grandma says, well, he simplified things and he reversed our roles. He is the Unbeing. I am Origin. Isn't that cool? Mm-hmm. So then she reaches down and she pulls out. She's like, your costume just doesn't look as good as in person as I thought it would in my sketch. So she actually created Quasar, and she's like, let me try something. And then she gives him a new costume, which at the time when I was a kid and I went back and bought this as a back issue, I didn't like it. Mm-hmm. But now I realized what she's saying here, it's based on Mar-Vell's costume. I didn't realize that at the time.
Yeah.
And it's okay, but I still prefer the classic costume.
I do love the stars, like the galaxy in the cape. I really do love that, but I do like the classic costume as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So then she's like, okay, well, see you later. And he's like, see ya. And then they fly away. Yeah. And there's a little like epilogue where we see like the kind of, shadowy faces of these entities floating in the air. And one of them's like, you have failed to accomplish your primary goal, Unbeing. And the kid says, yes, my lord, but at least I kept him from sensing the arrival of the great pawn. And then it says, and through him, death and oblivion shall claim the cosmos. And then it says, the beginning of the ultimate Quasar storyline, Cosmos in Collision. And that's the end. So like I said, it wasn't quite as good as the first 3 times I read it, but I did think it was a really good issue. What did you think?
I really liked it a lot.
Okay.
I think that it was very close to being one of my favorite Quasar comics.
Yeah.
I think I almost wish that it was split into 2 comics so we could have some more time with this concept. Sure. And like I feel like it was wrapped up like extremely quickly, and I would have liked to have seen it play out a little bit more. And nothing like, I don't think anything necessarily needed to be like added to the story, but I would have liked a little bit of like time to see him like think about it and kind of figure things out and like really sit in these moments, because by the end I think it's so quick. And it's really fun though. I love this idea. This is like the perfect sort of like weird alien shit that Quasar can get up to, like going on his own adventures and have it be different every issue. It's so fun, so creative, so imaginative. Like no other character could have done it quite like this in Marvel, I don't think.
I think you're right. And because maybe there's other characters that could have encountered a cosmic being like this, like maybe Doctor Strange or Silver Surfer, but no one is Wendell Vaughn. No one is this kind of young, naive, down-to-earth kind of guy who's figuring things out as he goes along. He's the perfect character to have in the story. And it's also, it makes it so much sadder that I didn't read the issue when it came out. Like if I would have kept reading Quasar one more issue, I might have kept reading it forever, but I'd given up before this. But yeah, I'll tell you, when I reread it like 2 years ago, I absolutely thought this was the best Quasar story I'd ever read. But I think now that I've read it a 4th time, I think my problem is that it's like you said, they spend too much time on the wrong things and not enough time on the right things. I think the kid spends too much time explaining. Like, put it this way, when I remembered the story, I did not remember anything about the creating the superheroes and uncreating them and all that. But he spends so much time explaining that concept. Just think about how perfect the story would have been if it was exactly what it is, except Quasar just lost his memory. He ended up there. The kid tried to convince him to kill the grandmother. And then, like you said, he could have just weighed his options, talked to his mother, talked to someone else. That would have been a more interesting story than this extra idea of creating the superheroes and uncreating them. You know, that was kind of an unnecessary, not subplot, but an extra detail we didn't need, I don't think.
Right. Yeah. Because it's a very like huge thing to introduce in a story like this. Right. Yeah. I'm curious to see if like the Unbeing is like a character that kind of shows up again as some sort of god, but it was really fun. I liked it a lot. I think that it's a really cool way to like tie it into his overarching story of this threat that is coming to Earth, and this is like a distraction to keep him away. And it wasn't even a distraction to keep him away. They were trying to get rid of him so he couldn't save. But still, they ended up winning in the end slightly, because he doesn't know, because of this incident, that this being was able to slip into Earth and is now hiding somewhere. So we know now that this evil thing that is supposed to end the universe is here on Earth waiting.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
it's great.
it's
Great.
fun. Yeah, it's a really cool issue.
So now we have to talk about the art by Greg Capullo. I mean, what can I say? Obviously, he got slightly better as he went along, but the art in this issue, all of it is great.
It's so good. I love it.
I love it too.
Oh my goodness.
Storytelling's great. The figures are great. A very strong sense of like graphic design, like walking to the garage with the light of the
right.
Yeah. On page 8, I think it is. Sitting there in the room with all the superhero drawings up around him. You know, there's some really great moments in this.
I think even the character design of the kid is so good, and the choices that they make with him are so smart, because he does just look like kind of like a cute little charming kid talking about superheroes, and then just with like a lighting change, all of a sudden this kid is this like cosmic entity, and you believe it. Like it, I never once was like, no, something weird. He's not actually this like being. Like I believe that this little kid had this like amazing gigantic power. It's really, really good.
I agree. Yeah. I agree. And it's funny because as we're flipping through the issue, there's not a lot of action for Greg Capullo to draw. He still manages to draw such a good issue. Also, I love his faces. Like he's just so effortlessly good at drawing.
The faces are great. This is the first time where, like right here, this panel at the bottom right.
Yeah.
I can see that this is his father's son. Like I can see that they're related 100% here. As weird as it sounds, this character looks like his father. Right. And I feel like you don't get that a lot in comics. Like it's lost a lot of the time because the characters are drawn generic a lot to kind of make it a little bit quicker. But there's something about the form in his characters where they are so consistent. And even like the mother and sister, they could have easily just been generic female comic book characters, right? Like visually. And that's what a lot of artists do. They kind of just like draw a woman. But these two characters look different, and they feel like two different characters, and you can tell like who the character is, and they're not even important to the story. Like it doesn't really matter who they are. They just feels very grounded and real, this story, which is saying a lot because it is this kind of weird, insane cosmic story. Yeah.
But the page that you're talking about, like, is that the sister at the top left or the mother?
The sister at the top, and then the mother at the bottom. Yeah.
So the sister, even though she's cartoony, she looks like a real person.
Yeah.
She doesn't look like a generic female, like you said. She looks like a real person, and that's really cool.
Yeah.
I mean, again, for a book that had Paul Ryan and then Mike Manley, who I'm a fan of, but this art now is great. And Greg Capullo stayed on actually for longer than I remember, so he has a good run here. Now, the funny thing is that years later, Greg Capullo did an interview somewhere, and he said something like, "Oh, my first assignment was at Marvel was this dog book called Quasar." I'm thinking, dude, you drew Spawn. Take it easy, okay? Don't crap on Quasar. Quasar was awesome, you know? So anyway, he should have been honored. But anyway, yeah, so this is it. This is the beginning of the Greg Capullo run. We just had the end of the Mike Manley run. So yeah, things are going to heat up now. Because,
that's really cool.
Yeah, the cosmic threat will be upon us soon. So it's going to get really interesting. On the next episode of Quasar QUA-NOLOGY, we are going to be reviewing the storyline Cosmos in Collision. So be sure to join us. And Josh, you can take it from here.
Yeah, thank you guys so much for listening to the podcast. You can find all of our other stuff on our website at thecomicbooksyndicate.com. All of our podcasts are video format now, so if you want to see the comics and things that we're talking about, you can actually go to our YouTube channel, the Comic Book Syndicate, and see our faces and also the panels and specific things that we're talking about, so you can kind of follow along as we chat about it. Leave us a comment. Let us know what you guys think about the stuff that we're talking about, the podcasts themselves. We want to keep in touch. So until next time, we'll see you later.
All right, see you later.